Assalamu alaikum students. How are you? I hope you all are doing good and learning a lot from e-learning. So once again, welcome to my economics class. So let's start today's video. So today also we are continuing from chapter 9, Fiscal Economics. In the previous video, you learned about the public expenditure in detail and that how the government spend the money on development and growth of the country. And also, especially giving first priority to the social welfare while spending on the country. You just learned about the public expenditure. Now, let's have a look on the topics which we are going to cover in this video. As I told you that in the previous video, I just cleared you the meaning of public revenue. In detail, we have studied about the public expenditure, but I just explained the meaning of public revenue. Like public revenue is the income of the government earned from various sources. And today you will learn the sources of public revenue. What are the sources through which the government earn the income? Then sources of non-tax revenue, and then the last one is types of tax. So first, source of public revenue. What are the means through which the government receives the income? So basically, there are two categories, that is tax revenue and non-tax revenue. So first of all, I will clear you with the meaning of tax. A tax is a compulsory payment to the government by the households, firms or other institutional units. Like the taxpayer cannot expect any service or benefit from the government in return. If he is paying a tax to the government, he can't expect anything in return. So if a person fails to pay a tax, he is liable to penal actions. A penalty will be given by the government to that person if he fails to pay the tax. So basically, if the person is paying the tax, it is a kind of compulsory payment. No one can deny from this payment. Like they have to pay to the government the amount on the income earned by the person. And especially the one thing which you have to keep in your mind, that the person who is giving the tax to the government will not get anything in return directly, but indirectly we are getting a lot of things like infrastructures, government hospital services, government school services. So it's a kind of the expenditure incurred by the government from our tax payment. So now have a look on the definitions of tax. The first one is given by Anatole. A tax is a compulsory payment made by a person or a firm to the government without reference to any benefit the payer may derive from the government. So the next definition is given by Dalton. A tax is a compulsory contribution imposed by public authority irrespective of the exact amount of services rendered to the taxpayer in return, and not imposed as a penalty for any legal offense. So just now you understand the tax revenue. So basically, the major source of income of the government is tax revenue. But there is another term, that is non-tax revenue. So basically, non-tax receipt or revenue are those receipts which are received from sources other than tax. To make this more clear, let's see what are the various sources of non-tax revenue. In short, like the major source of income for the government is tax revenue. But there are other sources other than tax, which is non-tax revenue. It will be cleared by the sources of non-tax revenue when you have a look on that points. So here are the points. You can see clearly, other than tax, what are the means through which the government earns their income? The first point is fees, fine, earning from public enterprise, special assessment, gift, grants and aids, and the last one is cheat. So let's have a look on the explanation of these points one by one. So the first point here is fees. A fees is a payment to the government for the services that it rendered to the people. Let's clear this point with the example, like as you know, while applying passport, driving license, marriage or birth or death certificate, you have to pay some amount of fees to the authorities. So that fees become the income of the government. Whatever you are paying to avail this kind of services from the government authorities, then you have to pay some amount of fees, and it become a revenue, kind of revenue for the government, and it comes under the non-tax revenue. So the next point here is fine. Why we have to pay fines? When we are not following the rules and regulations which is imposed by the government on us. Like fines are those payments which are made by the lawbreakers to the government by way of economic punishment. Here look, the aim is not to earn revenue. Its actually aim is to force the people to be law abiding, which means follows the rules and regulations. So for implementing the rules and regulation properly in the country, if anyone is not following the rule, then they have to pay, fine to the government authorities, and it becomes a source of non-tax revenue for the government. So the next point is earning from public enterprises. So there are several enterprises are owned by the government, like for example Indian Railways, Indian Oil, etc. The profit of these enterprises are a source of revenue for the government other than tax. You know very well that a huge amount of income is earned from the Indian Railways for our country government. So it's a kind of a non-tax revenue for the government other than the tax. So the next point is very interesting for you people, like it would be a very new thing to learn, like special assessment. So it is yet another source of non-tax revenue of the government. Special assessment is that payment which is made by the owner of those properties whose value has appreciated due to the developmental activities of the government. Let me clear you with the example, like when as a result of construction of roads or public park, value of neighboring property or its rental value appreciates, then a part of developmental expenditure is recovered from the owner of such property by way of special assessment. Those areas which are near to the construction of road or to the public park, due to this developmental activity of the government, actually the value of their land appreciates. So they have to pay some amount to the government because the appreciation occurred from the construction of these development activities. So it's also a kind of revenue for the government other than tax, obviously. So let's have a look on the next point. That is gifts, grants and aids. In the event of some natural calamities like earthquake, flood, etc., or during war, citizens of the country often make some donations and grants to the government. So such donations or grants are also received by the government from the rest of the world. And especially when foreign country authority or president visit the country, they oftenly offers gifts, and it's also a kind of income for the government. So the next point here is cheat. It's the last point of non-revenues income of the government, non-tax revenue. It refers to that income of the state which arises out of the property left by the people without any legal heir. Like there are no claimants of such property. That property goes to the government and the government makes revenue out of it. When the property is not owned by anyone after the death of that particular person, I mean, he does not mention anything in his will. So without legal heir, that property goes to the government and government makes the money from that property. Now let's study about the type of taxes. Basically, taxes are of two types, that is direct and indirect tax. First, understand the meaning of direct tax. Direct tax means when an individual pays that are paid straight or directly to the government, such as income tax, land tax, personal or property tax. Such direct tax are computed based on the ability of the taxpayer to pay. I mean, which means that the higher their capability of paying is, the higher their taxes are. For example, in case of income taxation, an individual who earns more pays higher taxes. It is computed as a percentage of the total income. Additionally, direct taxes are the responsibility of the individual and should be fulfilled by him only, not by anyone else. The burden cannot be shifted to another person. So it's the kind of special feature of direct tax. So direct tax in India are basically of two types, that is income tax and corporation tax. So let's understand what is income tax. Income tax is based on one's income. A certain percentage is taken from a worker's salary depending on how much he or she earns. The good thing is that the government is also keen on listing credit and deduction that help on lowers one's tax liability. So for your knowledge, I have just listed the slabs of tax rate mentioned in the financial year 2020 to 21. I mean, if the person's income is up to 2,50,000, you don't have any need to pay any tax to the government. I mean, the tax rate is nil. And for the person who is earning from 2,50,000 to 5 lakh, he have to pay 5% on his income. The third slab is from 5 lakh 1 to 7 lakh 50,000. It's 10%. You can have a look on these points first. It will obviously increase your knowledge regarding the tax slabs which is followed in our country. So now let's have a look on the corporation tax or corporate tax. So basically, domestic corporate is liable to pay corporation tax on the surplus earned in the course of particular duration. Corporation tax has a flat rate structure followed in our country. So basically there are two types, that is income tax and corporation tax under direct tax. So let's move to the other topic in the video, that is merits of direct tax. What are the basic advantages of direct tax to the country, to the government, to the public? I listed here the 4 points, that is equity, certainty, elasticity and economy. Let's understand the first point, that is equity. A direct tax is an equitable tax. Through it, the rich can be made to pay more than the poor. In case of necessity, the poor people can be granted exemption from the payment of such taxes. So I think you know very well that in our country, our government authorities follows progressive tax rate. I mean, if the person is earning higher income, then he have to pay the higher tax. And if the person is earning lower income, then he have to pay the lower tax rate. It means actually the burden of tax is on the rich people. So it helps to create the equitable situation for the people, like who is earning a lot. He will never feel anything while giving a lot of tax to the government, a higher tax to the government. But you know very well, if the person is earning very low income and if he is giving a huge amount of tax to the government, obviously it feels to him. So that's why our government focuses on progressive tax rate. It is a kind of, advantage of direct tax to the public also. So the next point is certainty. A direct tax satisfies the canon of certainty. Like for example, a person liable to pay income tax knows how much he will be required to pay and when to pay. Obviously, the government authorities mention a lot of notification to the public that how much they have to pay. I just showed you the income tax slab also, that if the person is earning from that particular income rate, then he have to pay that particular rate to the government. So it is very obvious that the person knows how much he have to pay and how and when he have to pay. Obviously, the government allows them a certain time period till they can make their income tax return to the government. It's the kind of merit of direct tax. So the next point is elasticity. A direct tax has elasticity. How? It can be varied according to the need of the government and changes in the income of the people. When the income of the person goes up, the rate of income tax can be increased and vice versa. So basically, I'm just clearing here the point that if the person is earning higher income, then he have to pay the higher income tax rate. So that's why it said that it is flexible. It is elasticity. So the next point here is economy. Direct taxes constitute an important source of government revenue. But fortunately, the very interesting point here is the collection charges of taxes are very low. Therefore, direct taxes are economical. You just have a look on the merits of direct taxes. Now we will have a look on the demerits of direct taxes. So the first point here is lack of popularity. First, such taxes are not very popular because the people have to bear the burden of such taxes directly, which insist the people themselves to pay this. They feel very insecure while paying the tax to the government. Just they are thinking that if we are earning a lot of money from hard work, then why should we give the tax to the government? Actually, they don't know the benefit of giving the tax to the government. Actually, it comes to us indirectly. But due to this lack of popularity of this feature to the public, they resist themselves from paying the tax to the government. So the next point is tax evasion. By submitting false income tax return, many people try to evade. Evade means skipping from paying the tax with the false activity. They try to find a way to escape from paying taxes. I just told you that the people are not very much happy by giving the tax to the government because they think that we have worked a lot, then why should we give to the government? But here arises a point that what the people think, they try to escape from giving the tax to the government. That is known as tax evasion. It's a fraudulent activity. No one can do this, but if the one is doing this and the government finds out, then the person have to pay the penalty amount to the government, and it covers under the demerits of direct tax. People usually escape from giving the tax to the government. They don't understand that direct tax is the important source of income for the government. Let's have a look on the third point. It is people's indifference. This is the third disadvantage of direct tax, that it does not develop the civic sense of those who do not pay such taxes. Like when a man directly bears the burden of a tax, he tries to know how the government spend the money. But those who are not directly affected by the burden of taxation remain indifferent as to the way the public expenditure is incurred. I mean, the person who is not paying the tax never, always takes granted the services offered by the government. You know what? Whatever we are getting from the, government is actually they are using our amount which we paid in the form of tax to them. So it's a kind of thing which people don't understand. Some people don't understand this thing. So next point is disincentive to work and save. Like the rate of direct tax are usually high, and many people think they will not get that much from doing hard work because a part of income will be paid to the government in the form of tax. So this discourages the people to do hard work because they assume that if they do hard work they will never get the incentive, because if whatever they are earning they have to pay a part of the tax to the government. So this thing make them insecure for doing the hard work. So that's all from the direct tax point of view. Now just have a look on the indirect tax. So the indirect tax is referred to as a tax charged on a person who purchases the goods and services, and it is paid indirectly to the government. The burden of tax can be easily shifted to the another person. It is levied on all persons equally, whether rich or poor. As I told in direct tax that the person cannot shift the burden of tax on another person, the direct tax. But in this case, the person can shift the tax, the burden of tax to another person, because whatever we are, purchasing goods and services, we are indirectly paying the tax to the government. And here a point arises that no one can escape from paying this tax. Actually, it is incurred in the amount of the goods and services which we are purchasing. So there is, equality. No rich, no poor. Everyone have to pay this indirect tax to the government. Now have a look on the merits of indirect tax. The first point is wider coverage. All the consumer, whether they are rich or poor, as I had told you, have to pay indirect tax. For this reason, it is said that indirect taxes can cover more people than direct taxes. So the next point is equitable. The indirect tax satisfies the canon of equity when higher tax is imposed on luxurious used by rich people. If the rich people are buying luxurious goods, costly goods, expensive goods, they have to make a huge amount for the indirect tax. So next point is economical. Cost of collection is less as producer and retailer collects tax and pay to the government. Actually, again, it is the point I mentioned in the direct tax also, that collection of this type of tax is also very low. So it's a kind of merit for the government covered under the indirect tax. The next point is checks harmful consumption. The government imposes indirect taxes on those commodities which are harmful to health. You know very well that tobacco, liquor, etc. They are also known as sin taxes. The person, government can't stop this all businesses in our country, the liquor businesses, alcohol businesses, tobacco businesses, but for checking them, for giving them hard time, they usually incur a huge amount of tax on these type of things which is harmful for their health. And you know very well that on the packets of tobacco or alcohol there is a message written by the government that it's harmful for the health. Government is playing a appropriate role in protecting the citizen of the country, but it's ultimately it's the wish of the public whether they want to maintain their health or not. But for the sake of people, government imposes a huge amount of indirect tax rate on these type of goods and goods, alcohol or liquor, alcohol or tobacco. So next point is convenient. Indirect taxes are levied on commodities and services. Whenever consumers make purchase, they pay tax along with the price. You can check any of the, you can check from the candy you are eating. There is written that in inclusive of all the taxes. I mean, already the tax amount is added in the price of the good. So they do not feel the pinch of paying the tax. So the next topic is demerit of indirect tax. So let's have a look by comparing the collection charges of direct tax and indirect tax. So first point is higher cost of collection. The cost of collection of indirect tax is actually higher than the direct tax. The government has to spend huge money to collect indirect taxes. So it's a kind of demerit of indirect tax. So the second point is inelastic. Indirect taxes are less elastic compared to the direct taxes, as indirect taxes are generally proportional. Next point is regressive. Indirect taxes are sometimes unjust and regressive in nature, since both rich and poor person have to pay some same amount as taxes irrespective of their income level. I just told you that direct tax usually of progressive nature. If the income is higher, the tax rate would be higher, but in this case the tax rate is similar for rich and poor. It means the burden is equal. So it's a kind of demerit. Next point is uncertainty. The rise in the indirect tax increases the prices and reduces the demand for goods. Obviously, if the tax rate is increased, the price of the goods automatically will increase, and it will discourages the demand of that particular good. So therefore, the government is uncertain about expected revenue collection. So the next point is no civic consciousness. As a tax is hidden in the price, so the consumer are not aware of paying the tax. So it's a kind of a demerit of indirect tax. So that's all for today's video. So it's the time for you people to write down your assignment questions. So the first question is, what is tax and non-tax revenue? Second question is, explain the sources of non-tax revenue. Third question is, what is direct tax? Explain its types and merits. Fourth question is, what is indirect tax? Explain its merits and demerits. I hope you all would learn a lot from this video, and obviously it would enhance your knowledge also. So thank you from my side. Assalamu alaikum students. Take care.